Deepak, I really appreciate you making the time for doing this with me. To start off, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and what you're working on?
Yeah, so I'm Deepak. I'm one of the co-founders of Quizizz, and I largely focus on product here. So I work with our product teams around, planning, and I love, help with even building out a feature and things like that. It's what I always loved doing. I started at Quizzes as an engineer when we were just two people. And so I love building and all of that, though now I don't get to do a lot of that anymore.
That's amazing, Deepak. So starting off as an engineer and transforming into product, that must have been a phenomenal journey. How big is Quizzes now? And could you also tell me more about what do you do on a day-to-day basis? What is your typical day?
Sure. So yeah, Quizzes has around 160 people now spread across our office in India, and we have a team in the US as well. How my day looks nowadays is it is a series of meetings to the largest extent. So I'm meeting with individuals or teams within the company mostly. I think the main exception being interviews that I take quite a few of those also with people from outside. But yeah, I do get a little focus time in between. But yeah, a lot of meetings.
It's great that you're able to squeeze in a little bit of focus time in between, like what typically would look like a meeting heavy day for any entrepreneur and a founder. So it's amazing that you are getting a chance to do that. Could you tell us more about what types of meetings do you typically have?
Yeah. I would say in the big buckets would be sync meetings where we're discussing, say, progress on at a team level, like a weekly or monthly sync. So planning meetings when we are thinking about a new feature or some new initiative, things like that. Sometimes people pull me in to share my feedback on maybe there's a product demo happening with a group of people. I enjoy sitting in on those and just seeing what people are working on, but also if I can share any inputs, that'll be useful. Beyond that, also a lot of one-on-one meeting with different individuals on the team. I try to be available to anyone who has anything that they want to discuss with me. I think those are the main buckets.
Got it. And then Deepak, where does Loopin fit in this entire day?
So Loopin is in multiple places, and what I really like about Loopin, especially since I've had been doing so many meetings, it just becomes this. I love the approach of how everything is organized around the calendar, around these meetings, right? Because my day also revolves around that. And I love that I can quickly put my notes in there, whether it's before the meeting, during the meeting, after the meeting, go back and check it. But that's sort of really what I find the most value in.
Amazing. And what do you like the most about Loopin?
I think at the most fundamental level, what I love is when I have a meeting, it's like one click and I can start making notes that are attached to that meeting. It's one of those little things, but even saving those two, three clicks, I think helps a lot. And it's helped me a lot in just not losing those notes. How often I would otherwise open up my notepad and note something and then I jump into the next meeting and before you lost those notes and then it's not easy to retrieve it. You sort of just let it go then. So that's been super helpful. In particular, a big unlock for me was this ability to put in these pre-meeting notes. Often I have a meeting, say a one-on-one coming up in 2, 3 weeks, but I'm in some other meeting and just something comes to my mind, right? Or I'm just thinking about something and I'm like, oh, I want to discuss this with that person when the one-on-one comes. Earlier, I would not really have a good place to put that sort of thing. And now I can just go to that meeting that's coming up and I just put in a little note. I can actually go back and look at even my notes from previous occurrences of that meeting also. So it's sort of neatly organized without me having to do any extra. It saves me all those clicks. And it also just brings a nice discipline for me also to take those sort of notes. So I think it helped me to just run more structured meetings that way, right? I took the example of one-on-ones, but it applies to, a team meeting or a lot of those sort of things.
It's so nice to hear that, Deepak, that you are able to drive that type of organization for your meetings with the help of Lupin. So glad that Lupin is able to fit in and do that work for you. As a last question, any advice that you have for founders and entrepreneurs just as yourself?
Sure, sure. I try to avoid giving Gyan because it's often very specific, right? Like the things that work for me may not really apply to other people. But one thing that was a great learning for me was Quizizz itself was the second product that we built in EdTech, right? And one simple thing that we did when we launched Quizizz, which I think was very impactful, was we just made it really easy for our users to get in touch with us by putting a simple chat widget. And seems like a very trivial thing, but I think just by doing that, we were able to have so many meaningful conversations with our early users, right? And we were not people who were in the domain of education, right? We didn't have a lot of understanding of what teachers need or how their day looks like. But we were able to really do that by just really being available to our users, right? So we had this button that made it very apparent that there is a person on the other side of this button, and it would ring anytime 24/7, which wasn't great, especially because I was in India and most of our users were in the US. But I would actually really look forward to those pings, because for anyone who has built something from zero, every user is a thrilling experience to know that somebody wants to talk to you about the product you're building. So we would of course be able to solve their issue, right, which you could do through even a email or chat, like a ticketing
Yeah.
system, which is what I see with a lot of people. But having the chat allowed us to not only solve that problem for them right there and in the quickest way possible, but we were always able to leverage that goodwill to have a deeper conversation, right? Say we would ask them what more they wanted from the product, what they liked about it, what they like about other products that we could do. We were able to have these really nice conversations, and the users also went away feeling like there's a nice team behind this product, right? I'll do what I can to help them. They took the time to help me. And often in that early stage, people neglect to remove that friction, right? Even if it's the smallest friction of maybe you have a button which says you can schedule a meeting with us, but just being available right there is a big unlock. And I would recommend to anybody, don't overlook that. Try to listen really deeply to your user in the beginning, and you'll even find that some of those early adopters will turn out to be people who are influential, maybe in their local community, but in our case, even people who are known even nationally or internationally ended up finding us through that, because those are the kind of people that are early adopters, right? They become influencers because they are the first to try out things, and they are the kind of people who would reach out to the team as well to see what's behind the curtain, right? So yeah, that was one tidbit that I would share.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that piece of advice. I feel it's so critical. Everyone says be close to your customers, but then being available 24/7 while they are having a problem would make such a massive difference, right? And then at early stages, when you're competing with perhaps more established organizations, even the kindest service would make such a huge difference for early users. So I feel that is so critical for all entrepreneurs to be aware of. So thank you so much for sharing that advice. Deepak, it was great having you. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and for being here.
Yeah, happy to do it.